At my best friend's wedding, I finally caught the bouquet as I had hoped. Everyone at the venue turned to look at Arthur, but he didn't step onto the stage for a long time. Not until someone pushed him up. I looked at him with eager anticipation, waiting for him to say those words, "I will marry you." Amid all the cheering and coaxing, he only said, "Sorry." Then he hurriedly left standing on the stage. I could only force an awkward smile. "That's enough. Let it end here, Arthur. I'm letting you go." Chapter 1. The wedding wasn't affected by this little interruption. I sat below the stage, sincerely blessing Nina. She had been on and off with her ex-boyfriend for 7 years, and finally ended it after his third act of cheating. But she was lucky, she actually met her current husband on a blind date. They hit it off instantly and got married at lightning speed. Instead, I became the only one in our group who still wasn't married. So today, everyone tacitly made sure the bouquet ended up in my hands. Avery. "I'm sorry. I didn't expect Arthur to have something come up and leave." I pushed him up there on my own. After finally finishing her toasts, Nina came over to me with our former classmates. The others also spoke up for Arthur, afraid they might upset me. I shook my head and drained the wine in my glass. The alcohol brought a fleeting sense of dizziness. Back then, almost everyone thought I would get married the moment I graduated. After all, that year, I wore a wedding dress to take my graduation photos. Even now, every graduation season, people still bring up Arthur and me from back then. At the time, Arthur had taken me, wearing that wedding dress, straight to the dean. He said I was the most precious gift of his life, but that gift has never received official approval. 7 years since graduation, and we still haven't gotten married. "It's over here." I sent Arthur a message. "Something came up at the company just now. Miranda said a client came by at the last minute. Take a cab back." Okay. We both knew perfectly well that he wasn't coming to pick me up. Even so, we still went through this routine exchange, because there was nothing else left to say. I scrolled through our recent chat history. There wasn't a single conversation longer than 10 words. The most frequent message from him was, "Not coming back tonight." And then there was Miranda and I. Business trips with Miranda, meeting clients with Miranda, going to the airport with Miranda. Arthur had one virtue: he never hid these things from me, but he never thought about what I actually cared about. It wasn't whether he reported his whereabouts, nor whether he came to pick me up. It was that out of 10 sentences, he could mention Miranda 7 times. That kind of concern, I minded it deeply. It wasn't like I hadn't made a fuss about it. I'd probably argued with him dozens of times. I could recite his replies by heart. "It's just work. She's my secretary. It's all professional. You knew back then, without her, the company wouldn't have made it. You're overthinking it. Don't be so petty." I called an Uber. When the driver saw me coming out of the hotel, reeking of alcohol, he reminded me, "Miss, you've been drinking, haven't you? When you get off, do you want to call a family member to come get you?" There was no one who could come get me. I shook my head and rolled the window down, watching the city's nightscape slide past. Scene after scene. Suddenly, I wondered, was it because I'd been too showy back then? Because I wore a wedding dress too early? So now I couldn't get married at all? But even if I married him, then what? Would it always be like this? As I watched the crowds outside the window come and go, for the first time, I doubted whether I truly still wanted to marry Arthur. Chapter 2. I was woken up the next morning by Nina's phone call barrage. "Avery, the more I think about it, the more something feels off. What exactly was Arthur trying to do yesterday? You've been together 7 years, right? He can't even give you a clear answer?" I was momentarily speechless, because I didn't know either. Logically speaking, after he left me hanging like that in public yesterday, I should have been furious. But this time, I wasn't, because I was used to it. A message suddenly popped up on my phone. "Company banquet tonight. I'll come pick you up." I hesitated, because he rarely brought me to meet people from his company. It seemed he was trying to make it up to me this way. Yesterday really was work. Don't overthink it. Arthur was still the same Arthur. He always noticed problems between us quickly, then fixed them just as quickly. Every conflict we had never lasted more than 3 days, because he always followed his own process to resolve things efficiently. Every time I tried to seriously talk things through with him while I was upset, he would pull out that same set of procedures. Once the process was done, whether I agreed or not, he would internally assume the problem had been solved. If I continued to make a fuss, he simply wouldn't bother with me anymore. But his eyes would be questioning me. What exactly are you still making trouble about? He never once thought that many things can't be fixed just by solving them. Feelings aren't work. Work values efficiency, but emotions don't. Okay. Back in my room, I picked an outfit, did my makeup, dressed myself meticulously from head to toe. I looked at myself in the mirror, but couldn't bring myself to smile. In the past, if he was willing to take me to meet people from his company, I would have been happy. But now, I suddenly found it troublesome. I waited downstairs in the residential compound for him to pick me up. Passers-by glanced at me discreetly, noticing how overly put together I looked. I waited a long time. Neither WeChat nor calls could reach him. Forget it. I'd take a cab myself. By the time I arrived at the banquet venue and followed the staff inside, the event had already started. The banquet was lively, people gathered in small groups, chatting animatedly. I felt at a loss. I couldn't find Arthur, and there was no one I knew. So I found a corner and sat down, until I saw Arthur walking in arm with Miranda, graceful and composed. The moment he arrived, he became the center of attention. The two of them made a full round of socializing. I watched Miranda pass him drinks with perfect timing, watched her lean in to whisper in his ear, watched them exchange knowing smiles. My first reaction wasn't anger. Instead, the word well-matched suddenly appeared in my mind. Arthur and Miranda finally came near where I was sitting. I could see them, but they didn't notice me in the corner. Oh, so this must be the sister-in-law. No wonder Arthur is so young and successful. He's got such a beautiful, capable partner backing him up. Someone said this casually, and the room quieted a little. Miranda was Arthur's secretary. People at the company naturally knew that. But they also knew Arthur had a girlfriend he'd been dating for 7 years. That unintentional remark made everyone prick up their ears, waiting for the outcome. Miranda covered her mouth and laughed coquettishly, leaning even closer to Arthur. Boss, this is Miranda, your secretary. She's worked with you before. Arthur smoothly steered the topic away, but he didn't reject Miranda pressing against him. The two of them linked arms and walked away. Around them came the company's teasing cheers. Feeling awkward, I lowered my head and reached for my phone. Only then did I realize Arthur had replied to me just now. Miranda and I were in an emergency meeting earlier. Got held up. Are you here? Where are you? Why aren't you replying? Forget it. If you didn't come, no need to come anymore. I looked up again, watching their retreating backs. Strangely, I wasn't angry. I just felt a little ridiculous. Free or not, come out for a drink. Nina's signature message bombing arrived. I agreed. At that moment, all I wanted was to leave as soon as possible. Well, not easy at all. Our model girlfriend doesn't have a curfew tonight. You actually agreed to come out drinking? Nina teased me the moment we met. I didn't respond. I took the drink she handed me and downed it in one go. What's with you? You just got married and you're already at a bar? Nina was already a little drunk, slinging an arm around me as she laughed. I'm not like you. So what if I'm married? I drink if I want, and if I want to flirt with handsome guys, I will. I knew she was exaggerating, but for no reason at all. I envied her. All right. Hurry up and call that useless Arthur to come pick you up. If you pass out drunk, I won't be able to drag you. I lowered my head, looked at the empty glass, and said softly, he's very busy tonight. I'll go back by myself later. Chapter 3. Already slightly tipsy. Nina didn't reply to me right away. She stared at me for a while, then suddenly blurted out, I liked your old clothing style better. I lowered my head and looked at my formal evening gown. It really did look completely out of place in a bar. Isn't it pretty? I asked. Leaning against me, Nina said, Avery. Back then we were the fine art school's punk misfit duo. Look at you now, from head to toe. There's not a shred of artistry left. A vase. You're a big, soulless decorative vase now. I looked at my carefully curled hair, the well-tailored dress, the custom-made heels, the matching jewelry. the flawless makeup, and lightly punched Nina. Come on, isn't that a bit exaggerated? This is the super trendy rich lady makeup that just blew up recently. Nina burst out laughing. Rich lady? Sis, you look exactly like a bitter, resentful housewife. She wasn't wrong. I didn't actually like dressing like this. This was probably the style Arthur liked. Back when Arthur's company had just been established, I followed him to a business social event for the first time. Fresh out of college, I wore what I thought was my best-looking outfit. But when Miranda walked in gracefully, I suddenly realized delicate, striking, flamboyant, and sweet could all exist in one person at the same time. That night, Miranda wore a red evening dress, her curled hair falling freely over her shoulders. She led Arthur effortlessly through the crowd. He helped her fend off drinks. She smoothly fed him lines at just the right moments. As for me, arriving with Arthur, I could only stay in a corner watching the two of them. I'd only planned to quietly wait for Arthur to finish and take me home. But unexpectedly, one of his colleagues recognized me and dragged me into a drinking circle. Amid endless teasing, I was forced to drink a lot. In the end, I got drunk. Apparently, I even made a scene. When I woke up the next morning, I saw Arthur calling people one by one to apologize. From that point on, I rarely went with him to social engagements anymore, partly because I was afraid of embarrassing myself and causing him trouble, and partly because I was afraid of seeing Arthur and Miranda together again, afraid that I'd lose control and make a fuss, afraid of hearing Arthur say, "It's just work, stop being unreasonable." I fell silent for a long time. Drunk Nina spoke up again. "Or rather than your clothes, I prefer the old you." The old me? I froze. Instinctively, I said, "Haven't I always been like this?" Nina shook my head hard. "Shake out that brainwashing potion Arthur poured into your head already. Think about it, everything you do every day. Is there even one thing you do just for yourself?" I was momentarily speechless. After a pause, I argued unwillingly, "But wasn't I the same before? Didn't I devote myself wholeheartedly to chasing Arthur back then too?" "Bullshit." Nina cursed Arthur as she spoke. "If I'd known things would turn out like this, I never would have helped you chase Arthur in the first place." Yes, I was the one who pursued Arthur. Back then, Arthur was the untouchable elite of the finance department, brilliant and stunningly handsome, yet always distant and unapproachable, making his reputation explode across campus. It was said that several department beauties and campus goddesses had tried to pursue him, all ending in failure. But I succeeded. He was a legend back then, and chasing him down made me famous too. Honestly, I wasn't bad myself at the time. Not long after entering the Fine Arts Academy, I won several design awards with Nina and the others. People called me the rebellious little prodigy of the art department. Back then, obsessed with artistic expression, I genuinely looked down on Arthur. Every time he opened his mouth, it was performance metrics, data, models, cold and mechanical. Until that art exhibition, one of my paintings caught the eye of a pot-bellied man. While bragging about how rich he was, he belittled my work. "I'll buy this painting, consider it supporting students and all, but it's just a student's painting, $300. I'll take the lot. How about it?" The supervising teacher looked at me awkwardly. The man clearly had some status, and the teacher didn't dare offend him. Young and hot-headed as I was, how could I possibly swallow that? Chapter 4. I went back to the classroom and grabbed my paints. Even if I destroyed the painting, I wasn't selling it to someone like him. I rushed back with the paint, ready to splash it onto the canvas. Only then did I notice Arthur. He was actually chatting happily with that pot-bellied man. Soon after, the man left in frustration. I put the paint down, curious about what Arthur had said. As he handed me a tissue to wipe my hands, Arthur said calmly, "I told him the painting is about a wife cheating." The moment he heard that, he didn't want it anymore. Seeing the faintly amused look in Arthur's eyes, I asked, "How did you figure that out?" "Analyzed it." That was the moment I fell for him. After all, someone who could understand my painting, I bet he would understand me too. But now, does Arthur still understand me? Nina was truly drunk. Her husband was away on a business trip, so I had to take her home first. I half carried Nina toward the bar exit. but my high heels betrayed me as I turned sideways. I was about to fall. Careful! Someone steadied both me and Nina, then smoothly guided us into a booth. Thank you. Sorry. We'll leave right away. I apologized instinctively, but the other person didn't speak. Only after making sure Nina was fine did I look up. Avery? That voice sounded familiar. The man across from me laughed openly and brushed his bangs back. Back then I had a buzz cut, but forgetting me is a bit too much. Huh? We pulled all-nighters together, war buddies. Remember? Seeing his mischievous eyes and hearing that familiar teasing tone, I burst out laughing. Hudson? He casually slung an arm around me and introduced me to his friends. His whole group was made up of social butterflies. One foreign friend raised his glass and shouted excitedly, Avery? You're Roland's muse. Hudson glanced at me awkwardly, then roughhoused with the foreigner for a bit before chiming in. Yes. This is the muse I've mentioned so many times. She's right here in person. A wave of cheering followed. I felt even more embarrassed. Just then, my phone rang. Where are you? Why aren't you home yet? Arthur's voice came through clearly despite the bar's noise. So, he was already home? For the first time ever. He got home before me. You didn't reply on WeChat. Didn't answer your phone. Where exactly are you right now? I glanced at my screen. He had called several times. I'm with Nina. She's drunk. I need to take her home first. Where are you? I'll come get you. I could actually hear the urgency in his voice. Bar 97, on Rose Road. It's pretty far. I'll just head back myself. I instinctively turned him down. I didn't want to wait around at a bar for him that long. It'd be faster to just grab a cab. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Before I could say anything else, he hung up. I checked the navigation, at least 30 minutes from home. There was no way he could make it in 20. Forget it. Waiting was something I was already used to. So tell me, Avery the great artist, where are you working now? Hudson waved his friends away. I looked at him, full of confidence and vitality, smiled, and said nothing. What could I say? Over these years, my entire life had revolved around Arthur. Where was I working? I couldn't bring myself to say it. Maybe he noticed something was off. Because he stopped pressing. Those guys may talk without thinking, he said. But there's one thing they said that wasn't a lie. Chapter 5. Hudson swirled his glass in front of me, under the flickering lights of the bar. I looked at him through the liquid in the glass. You really are my muse. After graduation, I went to Paris and started my own fashion brand. I'm planning to come back and start a business here. So, how about it? Want to relive those all-nighters from back then with me? He laughed as he pulled out his phone. Come on, add me on WeChat. I'll send you the files. Just as he was about to keep talking, a message from Arthur came in. Come out. I'm at the entrance. I looked at Hudson. Compared to back then, he was far more confident now. The light in his eyes, that was something I envied. Okay, I'll take a look when I get back. But I have to leave now. We'll talk on WeChat later. He casually slung an arm around me again and said cheerfully, I'm keeping track. You know, Avery the great artist has boarded my pirate ship now, no backing out later. I was just about to break free when I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my arm and fell into a chest. Avery! What are you doing? Hudson and his friends all froze. I watched Arthur yank me over and shove Hudson back into the booth. What's going on, man? If you've got something to say, say it. Why get physical? Hudson's friends immediately crowded in. I looked at Hudson with a pleading gaze. He understood and quickly said it was all between friends, pulling his friends aside. For some reason, Arthur seemed even angrier. So this is Arthur? Hudson broke the tension first. I'm Hudson, Avery's college classmate. Only then did Arthur symbolically shake hands with him. Seeing how awkwardly I was trapped in Arthur's arms, Hudson explained while asking, Sorry about that. I just got back to the country, got used to fooling around abroad and didn't pay attention. So, are you Avery's husband now? Arthur froze. This is between the two of us. Outsiders don't need to interfere. He answered coldly. Then he grabbed my hand and pulled me outside. I looked at Nina, who had been left behind, and quickly called out, Hudson, could you help bring Nina over? Arthur tightened his grip on my hand, When we reached Arthur's car, I finally broke free. Turning around, I saw Hudson helping Nina over as well. I hurried to take her, then instinctively sat with Nina in the back seat. So now you're going out drinking in the middle of the night, getting unclear with other men, and you won't even sit in the passenger seat anymore? Arthur's icy words came from the front. Hudson was still outside the car, placing Nina's bag down. I felt even more embarrassed. Did this guy really have no sense of occasion? Hudson tried to smooth things over with an awkward laugh. Arthur, we just got excited seeing an old classmate. There really wasn't any other meaning. Arthur suddenly got out of the car and slammed the door shut. He walked up to Hudson. That's it for tonight. Avery and I are going home. He deliberately emphasized the word home. Then he stepped past Hudson, dragged me out of the back seat, pulled me into the front passenger seat, and even fastened my seatbelt for me. Compared to the intimacy of him buckling my seatbelt, what caught my attention more was a lipstick lying next to the passenger seat. This lipstick wasn't mine. That shade could only belong to Miranda. He followed my gaze and noticed it too. Once again, he fell silent. Chapter 6. After we got seated, he finally started driving. On that last business trip, Miranda's bag tipped over. It probably fell out then. He began explaining. I looked ahead and realized we were already pretty close to Nina's place. Miranda said she's an employee, and sitting in the back would seem impolite. So she sat in the passenger seat. From now on I won't. Turn left at the next intersection and stop for a moment. I interrupted him, reminding him that Nina's place was just ahead. There's no good parking in her complex. Just stop here. I'll walk her upstairs. Arthur slammed on the brakes. Avery, did you hear me? I said from now on I won't let Miranda sit in the passenger seat. He picked up where he had left off. I got out of the car, took Nina's bag, and smiled at him indifferently. It's fine, I don't mind. Without waiting to see his reaction, I helped Nina inside. When I came back, I noticed the lipstick was gone. It seemed he had tidied up the seat. There was a faint smell of disinfectant alcohol in the car. What he didn't know was that I'd always had a very sensitive sense of smell. Under the scent of alcohol, Miranda's perfume was even more obvious. Some things, once they've happened, can't be erased in a short time. At 11 at night, the roads were still jammed. As traffic crawled forward bit by bit, neither Arthur nor I spoke. Ding, ding. My phone kept vibrating with messages. I glanced at it. It was the files Hudson had sent. I didn't know if Arthur noticed, but he started honking repeatedly, even though the car in front wasn't blocking him. Put your phone on silent. His cold voice came from beside me. I muted my phone. Since we were stuck anyway, I opened the files Hudson had sent. Besides the basic business plans, what caught my eye most were the design drafts. I had to admit, they really suited my taste. Almost as if we were in sync. Hudson sent another message. So, not bad, right? Want to give it a try? I'll give you one collection, 1 month. If you have ideas, just send over the designs. Don't worry, once the designs pass, you'll count as a technical partner, project-based, and the bonus will be generous. I was tempted. I finally understood why I had envied Hudson and Nina earlier, because they had things they genuinely loved. The things I used to love all revolved around Arthur. Now, it seemed there were things more important than him. I was so absorbed in the designs that, Avery. Arthur called me several times before I heard him. We're here. I put my phone away and got out of the car, heading straight inside. Just now, it sounded like he called me Avery. He hadn't called me that in a long time. It felt unfamiliar. The moment I got home, I went straight to the bathroom and stripped off everything I had on. Only after showering did I finally feel alive again. I had just opened my tablet, planning to carefully reread Hudson's design brief, when I realized there was someone else in the room. You're sleeping here tonight? Looking at Arthur already lying on the bed in his pajamas, I frowned. Arthur looked at me coldly and said, Avery, if I remember correctly, you're my girlfriend, aren't you? Seriously, what was wrong with him now? Was he being crazy again? I had no choice but to turn off the tablet and lie down. Arthur fell asleep quickly, but I tossed and turned for a long time, completely unable to sleep. It had been almost half a year since we'd last slept in the same bed like this. Sure enough, once you get used to sleeping alone, having someone suddenly next to you feels strange. In the end, I really couldn't take it anymore and decided to go look for some melatonin. I moved quietly, but Arthur still noticed. He pressed me back onto the bed. Where are you going? Can't sleep. I was going to look for melatonin. Now that you're sleeping with me, do you really need melatonin to fall asleep? He frowned, turned his head away, and then let go of me. Chapter 7. Bang. He slammed the door and walked out. Before, he always came home reeking of alcohol. Once, I complained that he drank too much, that the smell of booze on him affected my sleep. The very next day, he moved his things into another room. He knew perfectly well that what I was angry about wasn't him coming home drunk late at night, but that the night before, it was Miranda who had brought him home. Sorry, sister-in-law. The boss was helping me block drinks, so that's why. There wasn't a trace of apology in Miranda's expression or tone. On the contrary, the smug look in her eyes was obvious at a glance. I could even see Miranda's lipstick and foundation smudged onto his shirt. When I woke up the next morning, Arthur had already gone out. Different from before, there was actually breakfast prepared on the table. Unfortunately, looking at the steak and juice, I still wanted soy milk and fried dough sticks more. I heard Hudson came back last night, and that he even fought with Arthur over you. No one spread gossip faster than Nina. I could only give her a quick, factual rundown to rein in her curiosity. Compared to gossip, I cared more about Hudson starting a business back home. It's an opportunity. Hudson's pretty well known in the industry. You can give it a try. But you haven't touched design in years. Your skills are probably worrying. I knew that. Back in college, hand-drawn line sketches were still the trend. Now design drafts used professional software. Many operations and parameters were completely unfamiliar to me. There happens to be a fashion design course at the neighboring university. Come stay at my place, classes at night. I'll drill you during the day. Nina sent the message, then immediately withdrew it. Actually, forget it. Arthur would probably come over and murder me. Help me sign up. I'll come stay at your place tonight. Ignoring Nina's 60-second voice message, I quickly packed my things, planning to move in with her. Just then, Arthur called. I'm going on a business trip for the next few days. I'm going alone. Okay, I was just going to stay at Nina's place anyway. This time Miranda isn't going. I'm leaving her at the company. After that, I'm planning to transfer Miranda to another position. You, Arthur, you don't need to explain these things to me. I cut him off. Hasn't Miranda always been your secretary? Suddenly changing people, you probably won't get used to it either. There was silence on the other end of the line. After a moment, Avery, when I get back, let's talk. He was still sharp. See, he clearly knew Miranda was the issue standing between us. He clearly could have dealt with it. But before, he always blamed me for being unreasonable. I heard it so many times that I believed it myself, that I was overreacting. Now it seemed he wasn't clueless at all. He just didn't want to understand. Wow, Avery, you've really thrown away all your hard-earned skills over these years. Nina stared at my crooked, messy design sketches, clicking her tongue in amazement. With drawings like this, how did you ever get first place back then? I grabbed my hair again and buried my head into the drafts. I was originally a fine arts major. My understanding of fashion design was shallow at best. The fashion design award I won back then was at my absolute peak. According to Nina, however strong I had been back then, that was exactly how terrible I was now. So all I could do was cram basic knowledge during the day, attend classes at night, then pull another all-nighter to finish the design assignments the school gave. During this time, life felt especially fulfilling, especially when I was immersed in design. Arthur, Miranda, none of them mattered more than my work. Nina often looked at me, unkempt, dark circles heavy, hair greasy, and laughed as she said, "This is the Avery I know." Chapter 8. For the first time ever, I felt like life was different. So, it's still very immature, but I really want to hear your opinion. On the last day of our agreed timeline, I took my design drafts to meet Hudson. He carefully went through them one by one, then looked at me with some hesitation. Avery, don't blame me for being blunt, these drafts aren't quite there. I knew that. I had a sense of it myself. Just as I was about to stand up and thank him for giving me this opportunity, he gestured for me to come sit beside him. Avery, to be honest, these designs are pretty good. I was even a bit surprised, because I only found out later that you haven't worked on design for many years. The fact that these drafts can be on par with the work of my other designers is already impressive. But you and they are all missing one thing, or rather, one kind of feeling. Classic client-style cryptic feedback. I didn't really understand, so I could only nod, signaling that I was listening. Are you free tonight? I'll take you somewhere. I hesitated, but still agreed, because Arthur was coming back from his business trip tonight. He said we should have dinner together. In the past, I would have immediately turned Hudson down and gone happily to dinner with Arthur. But now I suddenly thought, it's just dinner with Arthur. It didn't seem more important than my designs anymore. After all, Hudson hadn't completely rejected my work. There might still be a chance later. At that moment, I suddenly understood why Arthur had stood me up again and again before. It wasn't just because of Miranda. It was because there were things more important than me, more important than having dinner with me. I was simply never his first choice. Have you arrived? If you're there already, wait for me a bit, I'm stuck in traffic. As expected, Arthur only called at the scheduled dinner time. Arthur, I can't make it tonight. I have something to do. I messaged you this morning. You were probably busy and didn't see it. The line went quiet for a long time. What is it? I can wait for you. When he said the word wait, I almost dropped my phone. For 7 years, it had always been me waiting for him to finish work with Miranda, waiting to eat, waiting to sleep, waiting until he had time to go out with me. He had almost never waited for me. It was strangely flattering. No, you just got back from your trip. You must be tired. Go home and rest. Avery! He sounded angry. Just then, the car I was in stopped, and Hudson gestured that we had arrived. Let's leave it here. I'm hanging up. I ended the call hurriedly, not bothering to hear the rest of what Arthur was saying. When I got out of the car and looked at where we were, I stood there in a daze for a long while, because Hudson had brought me to my undergraduate alma mater. Surprised? Hudson laughed as he led me into the campus, straight toward the Fine Arts building. It turned out that tonight was the opening of the Fine Arts Academy's summer exhibition. It was also at this exhibition that I had met Arthur back then. The moment I entered the venue, seeing all those young faces and their uninhibited, flamboyant energy, I finally understood Hudson's intention. My work was filled with stagnation. It lacked vitality and life. Back then, when I won design awards not long after entering the academy, it clearly wasn't because my technique was flawless, but because of that fearless confidence and vitality of a newborn calf unafraid of tigers. I felt genuine gratitude toward Hudson. Chapter 9. Thank you. I know where the problem is now. Hudson smiled knowingly and immediately started acting unserious again. I knew it. My muse goddess was just stuck for a bit. Look, one night and you're liberated. Seeing me suddenly get a little flustered, he hurried to add, don't put too much pressure on yourself. I didn't come tonight just for you. I'm also scouting for some promising talents to poach for my company. With that, he left me behind and wandered around the venue on his own. I was more than happy to be alone and decided to properly enjoy the exhibition. Until, inside the storage room of the venue, I unexpectedly saw one of my old paintings. This painting shouldn't have been here. Seeing me stare at it for a long time, a staff member spoke up. Student, these are works by alumni. This one was reserved a few days ago. It's not part of this exhibition. My painting had been reserved? Just as I was about to ask for clarification, Hudson dragged me away. Everyone had gathered in the central plaza of the exhibition hall, tools in hand, eager to try. Live creation challenge, are you in? No, I instinctively refused and tried to back away. But Hudson shoved a paint box straight into my hands and pushed me up. He shouted from below, if you win, I'll approve your design drafts. Go, my muse goddess. Good thing this was an art academy. The cheering grew louder and louder, and the atmosphere more and more heated. This was insane. Maybe it was the energy of the crowd, or maybe I missed that once fearless version of myself too much. It's just painting. Who's afraid of whom? I stared at the blank canvas and picked up the brush. The cheers from below and the sound of paint spreading on canvas sent my adrenaline skyrocketing. The theme was yourself. As I sketched the lines, scenes from the past years kept flashing through my mind. I had originally planned to paint a self-portrait, but as I painted, Arthur's figure appeared instead. Arthur. Had my inner sense of self been unconsciously built around him all this time? I put the brush down. 10 minutes left, everyone. Hurry up! The host's voice rang out. Looking at the painting in front of me, I felt more and more dissatisfied. No, that's not it. Arthur is Arthur. I can only be myself. I instinctively gathered my loose hair with a pencil, just like I used to in college. I painted at the fastest speed I could manage. During those 10 minutes, I couldn't hear the noise below, only my own heartbeat. Time's up. The host's voice pulled me back. The process moved quickly. By popular vote, my painting took third place. Looking at my finished work, my eyes suddenly filled with tears. Hudson brought me down, the overly emotional me leaning against his shoulder as I cried. Oh, come on. It was just a friendly challenge. So what if you didn't get first? Third place is already amazing. Besides, they all thought you were my girlfriend. They assumed the guy you crossed out in red in the painting was me. Speechless, I punched him lightly. The final painting showed Arthur in the background, crossed out with a bold red X, while my own figure emerged above him. Avery, this thing you said you had to do, was this? Amid the lively crowd, I saw Arthur standing there, holding flowers. You look very beautiful today. Huh? Chapter 10. I never expected the first thing Arthur said when he walked over to be that. I was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, no makeup, and there was still a pencil stuck in my hair, and he said I looked beautiful? I awkwardly accepted the flowers he handed me. They were endless summer hydrangeas, symbolizing love that never ends. They used to be my favorite flowers, but because Miranda was allergic to pollen, he had once said that buying flowers would bring pollen home and affect Miranda's work, so we rarely kept flowers at home, and I hardly ever received flowers from him. Thinking back, it's almost laughable how much I used to care about that. Once, I even went to a flower shop to order a bouquet, hid outside, and planned to jump out to surprise him after he picked them up. But I hadn't expected Miranda to be there too. While complaining sweetly about her pollen allergy, Miranda also held Arthur's schedule, reminding him he still had a lot of work to do. Before I could even take the flowers from his hands, Miranda suddenly fainted and clutched onto him. Can you stop causing me trouble? He picked Miranda up and drove her to the hospital. I didn't even get the chance to say sorry. The surprise turned into a shock. The bouquet of endless summer fell to the ground, along with me, standing there, stunned. After that, I never received flowers from him again, and that was also when I stopped liking endless summer hydrangeas. Avery, since Arthur's here, I'll head out first. We'll talk about the designs later. Hudson left considerately. I watched him walk away, thinking that I'd probably be able to revise my designs in a couple of days. Lost in thought, I suddenly heard Arthur say, Avery, marry me. My mind went blank. A buzzing filled my head. I watched Arthur kneel on one knee, watched him take out a ring, watched more and more people gather around us. Everyone was shouting, marry him, marry him. This should have been the moment I had waited 7 years for. His marry me should have been the words I dreamed of hearing all those years. I thought I'd be overjoyed. I thought I'd rush over and kiss him. I thought I'd agree without hesitation. But I didn't. The bouquet of endless summer slipped from my hands. Flustered, I bent down to pick it up. Arthur seemed to understand my hesitation. He didn't insist on staying on one knee. He put the ring away, picked up the flowers, and handed them back to me. Then, in front of everyone, he kissed me. I instinctively pushed him away, but he kissed me so wildly that he almost didn't give me any room to breathe. The cheering around us grew louder and louder. I was kissed until my legs went weak and could only lean against him. I let him bite my lip. I let the metallic taste of blood spread between us. Then he scooped me up in his arms, and amid the crowd's cheers, he carried me away. You bastard! He set me down hard on the grass, humiliated and overwhelmed. I snapped. Isn't this embarrassing? Why did you have to bully me in front of so many people? You could have talked to me privately. Why force me like this in public? Yes. He actually shouted louder than me. He looked even angrier than I was. But what was he angry about? I honestly didn't understand. He was always like this, always acting on his own will, always deciding what he thought I needed. It wasn't like we'd never discussed marriage. I had even planned everything out. But him? Every time I excitedly brought my ideas to him, he poured cold water all over me. He always relied on his own logic, his own decisions, to define our relationship. To him, I was just an accessory, someone less useful than Miranda, who could actually help his career. Why? Just now, you hesitated. You were thinking about breaking up and getting together with that Hudson, weren't you? I looked at his furious face, tugged lightly at the corner of my bitten lip, and said, Arthur, I am myself. Whether it's you or Hudson, I am first and foremost me. That's enough. Let it end here. We're breaking up. Arthur, I'm letting you go. 7 years. At last. I was also letting myself go. I left him behind and went straight to Nina's place. Seeing my swollen eyes and split lip, Nina didn't say a word. She just held me and slept beside me all night. Chapter 11. The very next day, while Arthur was at work, I went to his place and quickly packed up my things. The moment I walked in and saw the extra painting in the house, I let out a self-mocking smile. So it was Arthur who had reserved my painting after all. The painting looked especially out of place in the living room. Just like me, having lived in Arthur's home for so long, yet never truly belonging there. On the table was yesterday's bouquet of endless summer hydrangeas, now placed in a vase by Arthur. What a pity! A flower that symbolized eternal love had fallen to the ground twice. It seemed fate had already decided everything. Unrequited love was never meant to last forever. It took me 7 years to truly understand that. I left decisively, taking my things with me. My design drafts, despite being picked apart by Hudson and his team for an entire morning, were eventually approved. Hudson didn't let me idle either. From the design drafts to fabric selection, pattern making, adjustments, and model fittings, he involved me in every step. It suddenly reminded me of when Arthur first started his business. Back then, he spotted the opportunity in women's online fashion retail, turned down offers from finance companies, and single-handedly opened a Taobao shop. That was also when he met Miranda, who was still working as a print model at the time. I had gone to see him work on site. In the sweltering heat of the studio, Miranda changed outfits one after another, while Arthur took photo after photo, retouched them, and uploaded them to the shop. At the time, I was struggling with my graduation project and truly couldn't help him much. The online shop took off quickly. By the time I finally completed my graduation project and wanted to help him, he and Miranda were already working together with perfect coordination. After that, things expanded naturally. The company was established. Arthur became the CEO. Miranda became his secretary, and I became the one staying idle at home. More than once, I comforted myself. She was just a work partner. Their relationship was purely professional, but too much unspoken resentment, combined with Arthur's cold indifference and inaction, slowly consumed what was supposed to be love between us. And in the process, I lost myself. Only after experiencing it firsthand did I finally realize, compared to loving me, Arthur had always loved himself more. So between me and work, he chose work. He chose to side with Miranda, the one who could help him. After the breakup, he started updating his social media frequently. Caught a cold today. No medicine. On a business trip alone today. Finally framed Avery's painting. Looks really nice. Bought lots of flowers and put them on the balcony today. Watching his updates, I couldn't help but wonder if he had set them to visible to me only. But I didn't want to respond. Now, just like Arthur used to be, I loved myself more. I had to admit, Hudson was truly capable. 3 months later, my designs successfully became the first mainline products of his fashion brand. They were met with unprecedented market enthusiasm, with sell-through rates hitting record highs. People in the industry began to take notice of my name. Avery was no longer tied to Arthur. That feeling, it was exhilarating. That night, at the celebration banquet, I saw Arthur again. Because fashion companies generally didn't restrict dress styles, if anything. The more individual, the better. I returned to my old way of dressing. I wore a black miniskirt, long boots, sharp-winged eyeliner, and even got dreadlocks, something I'd always wanted to try. Arthur probably didn't recognize me at first glance. At the second glance, though, it was obvious, his eyes lit up. That was when Hudson finally arrived. As loud and energetic as ever. He spotted me immediately, walked over, and took off his shirt to drape it over my legs. Lowering his voice, he reminded me, "Avery, I'm not being old-fashioned or anything, it's just that your skirt is a bit short. Covering up will make it easier to sit." Seeing how awkward he looked, I couldn't help but laugh. And also, about Arthur, he added, "His company's distribution channels really are strong for this collaboration. Don't take it personally, okay?" I shook my head. When it came to work and personal matters, I knew how to keep them separate. Chapter 12. After several rounds of drinking, everyone was a little tipsy. I leaned back in my seat and quietly calculated my bonus for this project. A rough estimate told me that with 2 or 3 more projects, I could rely on myself to study in Paris. Just then, another round of toasts began, the unavoidable social ritual. Even though I could usually hold my liquor, after round tonight, it was starting to wear me down. When it was my turn, everyone was shouting, "Fill it up for designer Avery! Fill it up for the biggest contributor!" Seeing how happy everyone was, I didn't want to spoil the mood. All right, I'll drink." Suddenly, someone grabbed my hand and drank the wine from my glass. I turned around and saw Arthur. After blocking countless drinks for Miranda, he had finally blocked one for me. Arthur, who had been sitting far away, switched seats with someone next to me and sat down beside me. He stared at the shirt Hudson had draped over my legs for a long time, then said, "Avery, can I ask you something?" I nodded. "Do you still like me?" I looked at Arthur's flushed face and his slightly damp eyes and answered, "Yes." He froze for a few seconds, then quickly grabbed my shoulders in excitement. "If you still like me, then can we get back together?" I shook my head. "I like you, but not that much anymore." He still didn't understand. What I loved more now was myself. He broke down and asked, "What exactly happened? Can you tell me?" "I'll change. I can change everything." Miranda is no longer at the company. I went back to my hometown and got the household registration book. We can register anytime. We can move to a bigger place. I'll set aside a studio just for you so you can keep painting. I can even help you create your own brand. Listening to him lay out these plans felt exactly like when he used to listen to me talk about our future. His vision was beautiful. Unfortunately, it was no longer the future I wanted. Just like before is fine. No need to change. It was fine as it was. Because I don't need it anymore. He frowned out of habit, still staring at me stubbornly. I sighed inwardly. Love that comes too late is worth less than dirt. Arthur, don't be unreasonable. According to my process, you've been the past tense for a long time. My future doesn't include you. I returned his own words to him, exactly as they were. From here on, may we each find our own peace. That is the truest form of farewell.